and skilled labor within our region. The removal of these restrictions is intended to create an environment for businesses to improve their competitive edge through achieving greater economies of scale while reducing their overall cost structure. For those seeking to do business in our region, it is worthy to note that the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas confers rights of establishment of enterprises. These rights may be enjoyed by Caribbean nationals, whether natural or juridical. Businesses, whether incorporated and/or registered in the Caribbean community, will be able to operate anywhere in the Caribbean and beyond. The revised treaty also provides for the establishment of the Caribbean Court of Justice, which has compulsory and exclusive jurisdiction for the interpretation of all aspects of the treaty, including notably those pertaining to the functioning of the CSME, and more importantly, for dispute settlement. Recent decisions of the court set the platform for the development of a rules-based system which will provide clear, certain, and coherent rules for the management and operation of the CSME process. The countries of the Caribbean community are committed to pursuing a path of sustained economic development driven by the private sector in partnership with governments in the region, trade unions, and the wider civil society. And as part of that process, CARICOM recently held a convocation on the CSME in Barbados, to which members of various private sector and labor organizations in the region were invited, as well as opposition political parties and other stakeholders, to discuss their role in and concerns about the implementation of the CSME. The regional private sector, through its umbrella body, the Caribbean Association of Industry and Commerce, expressed support for the CSME and highlighted a number of areas where the pace of implementation should be advanced, including 1, the urgent implementation of the movement of capital, 2, the establishment of a regional stock exchange and accompanying regulatory framework that would allow businesses to raise capital and function as one economic space. 3, the finalization of the CARICOM Financial Services Agreement, which would allow the regional financial services sector to source capital at the lowest rate possible. 4, the creation of a regional credit bureau, which would allow for the sharing and exchange of credit information on clients seeking to raise capital anywhere in our region. 5, the hassle-free movement of CARICOM nationals. 6, the removal of non-tariff barriers such as measures equivalent to quantitative restrictions, MEQRs, and customs duties having equivalent effect, CEEs. And 7, harmonization of competition laws and the establishment of national competition authorities. The convocation also provided the regional stakeholders with an opportunity to examine the progress that individual member states have made in implementing the Caribbean single market and to gauge their readiness for the implementation of the single economy. Our findings are that notwithstanding some challenges with regard to differing capacities and governance structures, that we are on track for full implementation of the single market. Despite the doom and gloom propagated about the fate of the CARICOM integration movement, there is more to be celebrated than there is about which to complain. Today is about Commonwealth and business, and permit me to say a bit about the island that sent me here. Barbados has recently completed its own internal appraisal of the status of its compliance under the revised treaty. We are pleased with the progress that has been made to date in ensuring that we are CSM compliant, and we are readying our economy and legislative and regulatory structures to be single economy compliant. Our movement in the CSME, our involvement, is linked to our path of sustainable economic development. Domestically, we have passed several pieces of legislation which are intended to make our country an attractive domicile for international businesses seeking to do business in the Caribbean. We are therefore committed to pursuing policies that allow us to remain a well-regulated and well-respected international business jurisdiction, as evidenced by studies undertaken by agencies such as Transparency International. I also believe that there are a number of salient factors which would make our country an attractive domicile for international businesses, including businesses in the Commonwealth, and I just want to highlight a few. A well-educated and highly skilled workforce, investment laws that are transparent, no restrictions on foreign ownership of businesses and enterprises, limited foreign exchange controls, an expanding network of double taxation agreements and bilateral investment treaties, modern infrastructure and a well-developed telecommunications and transportation network, and a range of special incentives, entities, and tax products. Apart from this, we have recently approved the creation of the National Financial Services Commission, which will be responsible for regulating the cooperative sector, the insurance subsector, the stock and securities exchanges, and other aspects of the non-banking financial sectors. As a nation, we enjoy social, economic, and political stability, for we are a country governed by the rule of law and motivated by a respect for human rights and the dignity of the individual. Our legal system is based on English common law and principles, and we have an independent judiciary that ensures fair and impartial dispute resolution. So we value the progress that we have made thus far in our development as a nation, and we are determined to be jealous guardians of those achievements. We wish to maintain a well-regulated jurisdiction, protecting the integrity of our financial services and business sectors. We have deliberately developed institutional and regulatory frameworks that allow for the proper and judicious supervision and regulation of our international business and financial services sectors. We have ensured that our double taxation treaties contain transparency and tax information exchange provisions. In other words, if your business is a legitimate one that provides decent work, then Barbados might be the place for you. Secondly, Barbados's and the region's attractiveness as places to do business is accentuated, in my view, by the trading arrangements that we have concluded with a number of countries within this hemisphere, and to which businesses incorporated and or registered in the Caribbean can have access. I speak, for example, of the regional free trade agreements which we have with Costa Rica and the Dominican Republic, and the partial scope agreements we have signed with Colombia and Cuba. We also have a trading agreement with Venezuela. We have just started negotiations as a region with Canada for the conclusion of a trade and development agreement. I believe that the Commonwealth Caribbean is therefore in an excellent position to use its various trading arrangements to facilitate and promote intra- and extra-regional trade and investment opportunities with the rest of the world, and particularly with the private sector in the Americas. Finally, I want to put forward the view that the abrupt halt to the FTAA negotiations represents in many ways a missed opportunity for the countries of the Caribbean, which had invested substantial human and financial resources in this process. In some ways, it represents dashed hopes for a region, as it would have obviated the evolution of several bilateral free trade agreements with individual countries and sub-regions in the hemisphere. It could also have provided another vehicle through which Commonwealth countries would have been able to tap into hemispheric markets. The success that the business call to action has had in Africa and in other parts of the developing world is an indication of what companies can do to assist governments with their development agenda. My government is aware of and is supportive of the vital work which the Commonwealth Business Council is doing, and is appreciative of its use of excellent organizational skills in arranging this year's Commonwealth Business Forum. This business forum has brought to our region the type of business representatives with whom we hope to foster partnerships, whether government to private sector or private sector to private sector. I am confident that these kinds of partnerships can bring to the present crisis much needed entrepreneurial skills and financial investment that will help with the creation of jobs and increased economic development for our individual countries and for our region as a whole. Thank you.